Hello everyone. Welcome to the Extensions 101 webinar series. As Janakin mentioned, we are in the day 2 session of our 5-day series on building extensions for Zoho Finance Suite applications. I am Vinod and I am from the Zoho Marketplace team. Along with me, we also have Lavanya, Nandita, Arun Vijay from the Zoho Marketplace team and Kishore from the Zoho Finance team. So at any point in time during this session, if you have any queries, please post them in the chat window and we'll address them. So let's get started now. Before we get into the actual session, let's see a quick recap on our day 1 session. So in the last session, we introduced the 7 different Zoho applications as listed over here that comprises the Zoho Finance Suite. So of these products, we considered only the Zoho Books product during the session and explained all the features that are available within the Zoho Books product. Then we introduced extensions and explained how they help in enhancing the existing functionalities of the Zoho Books product with a few example use cases. After that, we introduced the Sigma platform, which is exclusively meant for building extensions for any of the Zoho product. Once we had an overview on the extensions and the Sigma platform, we went ahead with creating an extension for the Zoho Books product in the Sigma platform, which then redirected us to the Zoho Books Developer Portal. So this portal has all the components required for building an extension for Zoho Books, a sandbox environment to test the extension, and a provision to publish the extension in Zoho Marketplace. So we had explained when and where to use each of the components that are available in the Zoho Books developer portal. Then with a simple use case, we created an extension using some of the components, tested that extension in the sandbox environment, and then published the extension. So in the same way, we have dedicated developer portals for each of these products like billing, expense, inventory, and invoice, using which you can create extensions for the respective products. So these were the topics that we had covered in our day 1 session. So if in case any of you have missed the session, we had already made the session recording available in YouTube, and we request you to make use of it. Now let's get into the today's session. So extensions in general help in enhancing the functionality of a service, data synchronization, extending the performance of a service, and providing a better user experience. So here, in order to do all the data related operations, we need APIs. And so Zoho Books APIs is going to be our first topic today. You must be aware that every service follows their own authentication method to access these APIs, which will authorize and authenticate every API request. So of course, Zoho Books follows an authentication method called OAuth 2.0, which is going to be our second topic today. So once we have the APIs of any service, we need a communication channel which will help us create a handshake between the Zoho Books and the service on the other end. So to establish this communication, we have a connections feature available in the Zoho Books Developer Portal, which will establish an authorized connection between Zoho Books and the other services. Finally, with a few example use cases for Zoho Books, wherein an extension would be required. We demonstrate how we can build those extensions in the Zoho Books Developer Portal using the connections and the Zoho Books APIs. So this is going to be our agenda for the today's session. Now let's get into each topic in more detail. So the Zoho Books APIs um, facilitate the ease of data transfer, both within the Zoho Books product itself and between Zoho Books and other applications. So all of these Zoho Books APIs are built using REST principles, which makes them easier to use while building extensions for Zoho Books. And not just that, this Zoho Books APIs follows HTTP methods, which makes them compatible with a very a wide range of HTTP clients. So all the Zoho Books APIs handles the client requests and responses in JSON format, which is a key and a value combination. So in books, every resource is available as a URL, and a resource can be obtained by accessing the API root endpoint URL along with the request method. So the request URL of every Zoho Books API will contain a base URL as the API root endpoint along with the request method for that particular API. So the request methods that are supported in the Zoho Books APIs are get, post, put, and delete. So once we send the request using the request URL, the response that we'll be getting will have three different parameters. The first one is status code, next is the message, and the request body. So whatever the information that you are looking out of the API that we have used will be available within the response body. So to the details about the API root endpoint and the request methods for every record that are available within the Zoho Books will be available within the Zoho Books API documentation. So let's get into the Zoho Books API documentation and see how the information is available there. So once we get into the Zoho Books API docs, you could see the API root endpoint is available over here. So while mentioning about the request URL, I mentioned that the API root endpoint is going to be the base URL, right? So this is going to be the base URL for all the request URLs that we will be generating for the Zoho Books APIs. Next, we have organization ID. So in books, every business is considered as a unique organization. And if in case you have multiple businesses, so each business will be considered as a separate organization. So in order to fetch, any data within an organization, we should be every request URL should have the parameter organization ID by mandatory along with the API root endpoint. So with this, I can confirm that every request URL should have the base URL and the organization ID parameter by default. And next we have multiple data centers. So the books product is available in multiple data centers around the globe. So whenever you're looking to build an extension for the Zoho Books product, based on your data center, the base URL's domain should be modified, matching the data center that you are working in. So these are the information that are required for the base URL of any request URL. Along with the base URL, we also have request methods, right? So the request method for every record that is available within the Zoho Books or available over here, as categories by modules. So, for example, if we want to create a new contact in Zoho Books using the APIs, we have the request method within the context module. So let's just get into the context. And we mentioned that we need to create a contact, right? So once I click on the create a contact option, here you can see the request method that is necessary for creating a contact in Zoho Books is available over here. And in the top right corner, in the dropdown, you can see that multiple scripting languages are available. So based on the scripting language that you use while building the extension, you can use the request method as mentioned over here. So this is how we can obtain the information about API root endpoints and the request methods for every record that you are going to use in your extension for Zoho Books. Now let's get back to our presentation. So in our introduction, I mentioned that the Zoho Books APIs follows the OAuth 2.0 authentication method to authorize and authenticate every API request, right? So let's see what is OAuth 2.0 and how it works. So the OAuth stands for Open Authorization. So with the OAuth 2.0 is one of the industry standard authorization method which is widely used nowadays. So with OAuth 2.0, there is no need for the users to provide their user credentials. Instead, the OAuth 2.0 follows an approach called delegated access, wherein the app itself accesses the user's data on behalf of the user. Say, for example, you are looking to sign up for a new service, and in the sign up page, along with the username and the password field, you will find another option called sign up with some services like Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. So if you choose to sign up with any of those services, say for example, if you're going with Google, once you click on the Google icon, the service will prompt you to allow the Google to access the data in the service on the other end. So once you agree that the Google service will access the data from the service on behalf of yourself. So this is how the OAuth 2.0 authentication method works. This OAuth 2.0 method is a very secure method because the data access will be provided only for the scopes available. So this is an overview of the OAuth 2.0 authentication method. As in our Janaki's introduction, she mentioned about the Zoho CRM APIs webinar, right? So that is one of our other webinars happening in parallel. In that particular webinar, we had a session on APIs and the OAuth 2.0 authentication method in detail, which happened maybe around 1 month ago. So if you want to know more about the APIs and the OAuth 2.0 authentication method, we request you to refer to that YouTube video as well. So now we have seen about the Zoho APIs and its authentication method, which is OAuth 2.0. Next, we'll move on to the next topic, that is connections. So in every extension that you are building, the connections is going to be a mandatory element which is required for establishing a connection between the Zoho Books and the services on the other end. So with connections, you can create a connection between Zoho Books and any other third-party service or any other Zoho service itself. And not just that, the connections help in establishing a communication within the Zoho Books product itself while building the extensions. Say if you are looking for some customizations within the product itself, in that case as well, we would be requiring the connections. So in the Zoho Books Developer Portal, we have two different types of connections. So one is the predefined connections and the other one is custom connections. So this is how the connections are listed within the portal. So under the default services, as you can see over here, we have a list of connections created already for around 83 services so far. So while building an extension, if you are looking for a connection with any of the services listed in the default services, you can just go ahead, pick the service and establish a connection with that service and the Zoho Books product. Instead, if you don't find your desired service listed under default services, you can go for the custom services option, wherein you can create the connection with the you can configure the connection with that service first, and then you can use the connection with the service and with the Zoho Books. So let's get into the Zoho Books developer portal and see how these connections are available within the portal. So in order to access the Zoho Books developer portal, we need to create a connection for Zoho Books first. And for creating an extension, we need to get into the Sigma platform. So now I'm getting into the Sigma platform, and to create a new extension, I'm clicking on the new extension button. So here we need to provide a name and a description for our extension. Once we provide the name and the description, I'm choosing the service as Zoho Books over here. And once we agree to the terms and conditions and click on create, so here we can see that the extension has been successfully created. If you hover over the extension and click on the edit extension icon, you can see that we have been taken into the Zoho Books developer portal. Once we get into the portal, by default, we will be taken to the learn section, wherein we will see a few of the components available in the developer portal. Since our focus is on connections now, let's move to the next section, that is build. And in the left panel, we could see the connections section. So I'm just clicking on that, and we have been taken into the connections section. So here, I can see, as I mentioned, we have two different types of connections. One is the predefined connections and the other one is custom connections. So let me get into the predefined connections first. Here, as I shown in the screenshot, we could see that around for 83 services, we have the connections created already. So if you want to use connection for any of these services, can directly pick one from them. Say for example, if we want to create a connection between Zoho Books and Google Drive, let me check if Google Drive service is available over here. So here we could see the Google Drive service is already available in the list. So I'm choosing that. So once we get in, we need to create a connection between the Zoho Books and the Google Drive service. So for that, I'm clicking on the create connection button. Now we need to provide the connection name. Here you could see that the connection link name has been automatically generated. Next, we have use credentials of login user. So if you want the user to provide their credentials while authorizing the extension, you can toggle this to yes. Else, if only the admin credentials or the OAuth authorization is sufficient, we can toggle this to no. Then we need to choose the scopes. So the scopes defines which data is being accessed through this extension. So we need to access both the folders, that is drives within the Google Drive, and the files available within those folders. So I'm choosing both the scopes over here, and I click on create and connect. So now the platform is confirming us if we want to connect with the service Google Drive. So once we click on connect, so here the authentication is being handled in the backend. And once we click on connect again, so now if you are building an extension between Books and Google Drive, you can directly go ahead and use this particular connection. Here in the connection summary, we could see the connection name that we have provided along with the connection link name that has automatically generated. Also, we have the list of scopes that we have chosen while creating the connection. And then under the sample code, so you could see two different options. One is deluge and the other one is JSON. If you are building your extension using the deluge editor that is available from Zoho, so wherever you want to use this particular connection, all you have to do is like just copy this particular code and go paste it in your implementation. So this makes it easy for the developer to make the connection available within the logic. In the same way, if you are building a widget, then a JSON code is required, and in that case, again we can copy the code snippet using the copy to clipboard button, and wherever you want to use the connection within your widget, you can just go ahead and paste this JSON code snippet. So this is how you can use the connections in your implementations. Please make sure that whenever you copy the code snippets, always use this copy to clipboard button in order to avoid any errors. Then in the top, we could see in the option called edit and delete. If in case you have missed or remove any scopes, or you want to make any sort of changes to this particular connection, you can use the edit option, make the necessary changes, reauthorize the connection, and then you can use this particular connection in your extension. In the same way, if you don't want to use the connection anymore, you can just delete it from your extension space. Instead, I mean, if you don't want to delete, but keep the connection in hold, you can use the revoke option, so that it will revoke only the authorization but keep the extension under your my connection section. So all the connections that you will be creating for an extension will be available under the my connections section. So this is how you can pick a service from the default services and get connected with Zoho Books. If in case, as I mentioned, if the desired service is not available as part of the default services, we can configure the connection for that particular service first using the custom services. So to create a new service, we should click on the create service button. And once we get into the create service, we need to provide the service name, and the service link name will be automatically generated. Next, we have authentication type. So while discussing about the OAuth 2.0, we mentioned that every service follows their own authentication method, and the information about that particular authentication method will be available in the API documentation of that particular service. So just like we have seen for Zoho Books API documentation, right? So every service will have their own API documentation wherein you can find the authentication information. So based on the services authentication type, you can pick one among them. And based on the type that we are choosing from here, the subsequent options will appear. So if I'm choosing OAuth 2, we need to provide further information like client ID, client secret and all. The information to obtain all these parameters will also be available as part of the API documentation itself. So by referring to the services documentation, you can generate those parameters, and after generating, once we click on create service, the services will be created and listed over here, just like the services listed in default services. So once the service has been listed, created and listed over here, we can create a connection with that particular service and Zoho Books, just like the procedure we have followed for default services. So this is how we can pick services from default and custom services and create a connection with Zoho Books and that particular services. So now that we have completed the Zoho Books APIs, the authentication method, and the connections part. So let me go back to the presentation now. And as I mentioned earlier, we will show you a couple of use cases for Zoho Books. And let's go ahead and create an extension to achieve that particular use case using the connections and Zoho Books APIs. So here is our first use case. In this particular case, we will be, we are creating an integration between Zoho People and Zoho Books, which will fetch projects from the Zoho People and add it to Zoho Books. So when this integration could be helpful. So in Zoho People, we will be having informations about multiple projects that is handled in an organization, along with the users involved in that particular object. Particular project. So if in case you want to provide billing for a particular project, that can be done with the help of Zoho Books. But we need the project information, right? So in order to fetch the project's information from Zoho People and make it available in Zoho Books, we are going to build an integration between Zoho People and Zoho Books. So this is going to be our use case. And to implement this case, let's see what are the components required. So first, we are gonna integrate Zoho People and Zoho Books. So for that, we need a communication between each other, and that communication can be achieved with the help of a connections. So we need to create a connection between Zoho People and Zoho Books. Once we fetch the projects from Zoho People, it has to be placed somewhere within the Zoho Books, right? So there should be a communication happening within the Zoho Books itself. So in order to achieve that inside communication, we need a connection again for Zoho Books. So we require two different connections. One is to connect Zoho People and Zoho Books, and the other is to have an internal communication within Zoho Books. So next, we need a custom function that should handle the logic of fetching the projects from Zoho People and adding the projects within the Zoho Books. So to automate all these processes, we need a custom function. And in order to trigger that function somewhere, we are going to create a custom button. So on click of a button in Zoho Books, this custom function should trigger and fetch the projects from Zoho people and make it available in Zoho Books. So for implementation, we need two connections, a custom function and a custom button. Okay. So let's get into the Sigma platform to create an extension and achieve this use case. For that, I am getting into the Sigma platform again, and I'm going to create a new extension. So this extension is going to be between Zoho people and Zoho Books. Since the extension is going to be for Zoho Books, we are choosing the service as Zoho Books. And once we agree to the terms and conditions and click on create, we could see the extension has been created. And as I mentioned earlier, once we click on the edit icon, we will be taken to the Zoho Books Developer Portal. So in our implementation, our first step is to create connections, right? So let's get into the build section and get into the connections section. Now I'm getting into the predefined connections option and see if the service people is listed in the default services. So here we could see the Zoho people service is already available as a default service. So I'm just choosing that and start creating the connection for between people and Zoho Books. For that, I'm clicking on the create connection button and I'm providing a connection name. So here you could see the connection link name has been automatically generated. Now, I don't want every user to provide the credentials while authorizing. So I'm toggling it to no. And then we need to choose the scopes. So in this case, so this connection is gonna fetch the projects from, projects available within the Zoho people, right? So let's get into the Zoho people's API documentation and see what scopes should be provided for that. So I'm getting into the here people's API documentation, and under the timesheet API, we can see the projects API. So since we are going to get the projects, I'm clicking on get projects API. So in order to use this get projects API, we should be using the scope called Zoho people.timetracker.all. So let me come back to the developer portal and select the timetracker.all scope for that. Okay. So with this, this communication can access the project's information available in the Zoho people. Once I provide the scope, I'm clicking on create and connect. So now the platform is asking, confirming us if we want to connect with the Zoho people. Once we click on connect, the authentication happens. And once we click on connect again, it confirms the scopes that we have just provided. So we defined the all for time tracker, right? So after confirming, we click on accept, and you can see that the connection between Zoho Books and Zoho people has been successfully established. So the in our implementation, we have successfully created our first connection. Now let's go ahead and create our second connection. So for that, I am getting into the default services again and search for books. So here again we can find the Zoho book service is available as a default service. So I'm just clicking on that and I'm going to create a connection for Zoho Books. So again, I'm clicking on the create connection button and I'm providing a name for the connection. So again, I'm gonna turn off the option use credentials of login user, and now we need to provide the necessary scopes for the books product. So in this case, we get the projects from Zoho people and add it within the projects module of Zoho Books. Okay, within Zoho Books, we again have a module called Zoho Projects. So all the projects that we fetch from Zoho people is going to be pushed to the projects module. So I need to provide access to the projects module. Let me just search for projects, and here I could see the projects all. So I'm selecting the scope. So along with this scope, while fetching the project information, we'll also be having some user informations, right? So those users should be added as contacts in Zoho Books. So I should be, providing access to the contacts module as well. I'm selecting the contacts module now. So now we have chosen the necessary two scopes. One is contacts and the other one is projects. So once we choose the necessary scopes and click on create, so again the platform is asking us asking a confirmation. Once we click on create, connect. So here it is showing us the two different scopes that we have provided. So once we accept this, so again we can see that the connection to have an internal communication within Zoho Books has also been successfully created. With this, we have successfully created the two different connections required for our implementation. As I mentioned, in my sections, we can see all the connections that we have used for this particular extension. So with this, the first step has been successfully completed, that is creating a connection. Now, the next step is to implement our logic with a custom function, and that custom function has to be associated to a custom button which will trigger the custom function whenever required. So to create a custom function and custom button, let's get into the preferences component. And since this project information is going to be available within the projects module, let's choose the projects module over here. Here I mentioned that we'll create a custom button and associate the custom function to that custom button, right? A custom button, right? So I'm going with the custom buttons option over here. And to create a new custom button, I'm clicking on the new button over here. So here it is asking us to provide the custom button name. So I'm giving the name as get projects. Then we need to define the visibility of this custom button. I want this custom button to be available for all the users. So I am choosing everyone over here. Next, we have global fields. If in case we have any global fields already available in our developer portal, and we want to use that global field as well in our implementation, we can choose this option. For now, I don't have any global fields and I don't want to use any global fields now, so I'm not selecting this option. So we will be covering more on the global fields option in our upcoming sessions. Now once we provide the options, we can see that the deluge editor has automatically populated, wherein we can write our custom function. So here we can see the function has been automatically fetched with the name, and within that we have different objects that has the project information. No, we are just creating the extension, and this is in sandbox environment. We have not moved to the production environment yet, so we don't have any project information here. Then we have organization. Um, so I mentioned within Zoho Books, every business will be considered an organization, right? So those organization information will be available in the organization object. Next, we have users. So all the users available within this organization, those information will be fetched and made it available over here. So this is the benefit of using the deluge editor, which automatically fetches the required information and make it available for the developer. So as I mentioned, all the necessary information like the project information, organization information, and the user information will be readily available by the deluge editor, which makes the work of the developer easy. Instead, if not, he has to use another logic to get those informations. So, so with the informations readily available, I have already created my custom function. I'm just copying it and replacing it over here. So while we were discussing about the Zoho Books APIs in the Zoho Books API documentation. We mentioned that it is mandatory for every request URL to have the API root endpoint and the organization ID, right? So those informations we have obtained from the organization. So here we have the organization ID, and we have the API root endpoint available here. So we have made, fetched those information and made it available as part of our logic. Then we have connections. I'll just replace these connections with the connections that we have just created. So, all right, I have replaced all the connection names. And if you could see over here, we have used the people's API to get all the projects available within the Zoho people. Then I have used the post method of Zoho Books APIs to make those projects available within the Zoho Books. So now I'm just saving this function. With this, we have successfully implemented our logic, that is creating the necessary connections and creating a custom function and adding it to a custom button. So in order to test if this extension works, I mentioned we have a sandbox environment available within the portal, right? So to test that, we can use this button, test your extension. So once I click on that, so we can see that a sandbox environment has been opened. So since this is a sandbox environment, which is a new environment, we will not be having any entries by now. So let me just quickly create a project now. And we won't be having a customer as well. So I'll create a customer now. You choose the billing method and the cost. These are the mandatory fields, so that needs to be provided. And once I click on save, so you can see that the project that we have just created is only the project that we have just created is available. Now, if I get into that project, here we could see the custom button that I have just created, right? I have provided the name as get projects. So that button is available over here. So if I click on this particular button, it should fetch the projects from Zoho people and make it available in Zoho Books. So I'm just clicking on that. It is asking us to, confirming us to proceed with the custom action. Once we click on proceed, so you can see that the custom button has been triggered successfully. Now we should be having the projects available in Zoho people as part of the projects module. First, let's see what are the projects available in Zoho people. So in my Zoho people's account, I have two different projects. One is a Benz implementation and the other one is new project. So let us check if those two projects are added in Zoho books. So if I refresh, so here you can see that both the projects that were available in my Zoho people's account are added to this module. So our extension has been implemented successfully. Also, we mentioned that while adding the projects, we mentioned that whatever the contact associated with that projects will be added to the contacts module, right? So let's get into the customers module, which is the contacts module here. So here we can see that along with the customer that we have just created, we have another two different customers which have been fetched from the Zoho people. So with this, we can confirm that our extension is working properly. So let's close this sandbox environment. And if we want to publish this extension, you can use the publish section available over here. And once you click on publish, it will be sent to two different reviews. One is the Zoho Finance Team review. And once the finance team reviews gets completed, you will be getting a private installation URL for this particular extension. So if you don't want to publish this, make this extension available in Zoho Marketplace. Instead, you want to use this extension only in your organization. You are good to go with only with the Zoho Finance Review. Instead, if you want to make this extension available in the Zoho Marketplace for all the Zoho users, you have this extension has to submit it for the another review, which is Zoho Marketplace approval review. Once that review gets successful, your extension will be listed in Zoho Marketplace. So this is how you can publish your extension in two different ways. One as a private extension and the other one as a public extension. Okay. So with this, we have successfully, implemented our first use case. I'll just go back to the presentation now, and I'll show you the second use case. So in Zoho Books, you will be handling with multiple invoices, right? So if in case you want to share any of the invoice to the externally to your customers, then you should be sharing the invoice URL. So the invoice URL will be a bit long. So you can use have an integration with the Bitly, which is URL shorten service, using which you can shorten the invoice URL and provide only the short URL that has been generated by this Bitly service. So this is going to be our second use case. And in order to achieve this integration, let's see what are the components required. Again, since the integration is going to be between Zoho Books and the Bitly service, we need a connection between Zoho Books and Bitly. Then we also have customizations happening within the Zoho Books as well. So we need another connection for Zoho Books. So again, for this use case as well, we need two different connections. One is between the Zoho Books and Bitly, and the other one is for the internal communication of Zoho Books. Next, we'll create a custom field within the invoices module. See, we said that we will be generating a shortened URL, right? If we have a new custom field and have this URL available within the custom field, whenever you want to share this invoice, share an invoice with your customer, you can use that particular shortened URL and you don't have to generate the URL again and again. So for that purpose, we'll create a new custom field. Then we'll need a custom function to handle the logics of obtaining the invoice URL from the Zoho Books and shortening it using the Bitly service. And this custom function has to be triggered somewhere, right? So for that, we are again having a custom button. So on click of that particular button, the function will be triggered in the backend and the shortened URL will be generated. So I'll show you the output of this particular extension now. So as you can see over here, we'll have a custom button called Bitly invoice link. And on the click of this particular button, we will, the extension will generate the shortened URL for the invoices that we have selected. So let's see how we can build an extension to implement this particular use case logic. So for that, we need to create an extension, and I'm getting into the Sigma platform again. So I'm going to create a new extension now. So this is going to be between Bitly and Books. This extension is going to shorten all the invoice URLs. So once we choose the service as Zoho Books, agree to the terms and conditions and click on create. So we have our extension created. And once we click on the edit extension button, have been taken to the Zoho Books Developer Portal again. So the first step is to create the connections. So for that, I'm getting into the build section and getting into the connections section. So first, let me get into the predefined connections and see if the Bitly service is available in the default services. So as you can see over here, we have the Bitly service already configured. So I'm just clicking on that and I'm going to create the connection between Bitly and Books. So the connection link name has been automatically generated. As you can see, this service does not require any scopes for this particular connection. So I'm just going ahead with create and connect. And the connection has been created successfully. So in the same way, let's create a connection for Zoho Books. Once we click on the Zoho Books service, we shall create a connection. So here we need to provide the scopes for this connection. In this case, the extension will access the invoices module of our Zoho Books, right? So let me search for invoice and I'll select the invoices option over here. So since only the invoice module is going to be involved in this extension, we are good to go with the scope for invoice module. And once I click on create and connect, so we have provided only one scope and it has been listed here. Once we click on accept, the connection has been successfully created now. So again, the two connections that is required for our implementation has been successfully created now. So the first step has been successfully completed. The next step is to create a custom field, right? So for that, we shall come back to the developer portal and get into the invoices module. So to get into invoice module, we'll choose the preferences component, and under invoice, if we click on invoice, we will be taken to the invoices module. So we need to create a custom field, right? So to create a custom field, I'm clicking on the new custom field button. Now we shall provide a label for our new custom field. I'm giving the name as bit.ly URL. And for every custom field, we should be defining the data type of that particular field. So since this is going to be an URL, I am choosing the URL option over here. Then if required, we can provide a help text for this particular custom field. This is to inform the users what this particular field is for. And if you want to give any default value, you can provide that over here. Then if you want this custom field to be available in all the invoices, you can make it mandatory. In my case, I am not making it mandatory, so I'm retaining with no option over here and show in all PDF. If you want this custom field to be a part of all the invoices, we can choose the S over here. And in preview, we can see how this custom field is gonna reflect within the invoices module. So once I click on save after giving all the informations, you can see the custom field has been successfully created. So the second step of our implementation has been successfully done. Next, we'll create a custom function. We will create a custom function and associate with the custom button. So for that, I'm getting into the custom buttons option, and to create a new custom button, I'm clicking on the new button over here. So again, I'm going to provide the custom button name. So in visibility, I'm choosing with everyone over here because I want every user to access this custom button. Then we need to define the location where this particular custom button should be available. From the drop down list, I am going with the details page view. So for every option, you will find a preview option over here to check where the custom button is going to be present. Okay. So again, once I select the location, it is asking us to add if any asking us if we are gonna add any custom fields. So since I don't have any global fields, I'm not choosing this global fields option for now. Again, the deluge editor has obtained all the invoice information available within the organization information and the user information. So for the custom function, again, I have the logic ready. I'm just copying that and providing it over here. So here, I have used the Zoho Books get method to obtain the invoice information available in the invoices module, and then passing it to the bit.ly's API for shortening the URL. Once I get the response, I'm putting that response in the custom field that we have just created. Okay. So in order to access the custom field, we should be providing the API name of that particular custom field. So to get the custom field's API name, I'm just saving it now and get into the custom field. So here you can see the API field name for the custom function, custom field that we have just created. I'm just copying that. Again, get into our custom function. and just replacing the custom fields API name. So with this, our implementation is completed. Let's go ahead and test our extension now. I'm clicking on the test your extension button. Again, since this is a sandbox environment, will not be having any entries within the invoices module. So I'll just create a new invoice now. We won't be having a customer as well. So I'm just creating a customer now. And that customer has been associated with this invoice. So we have values for all the mandatory fields. So, and I'm just adding an item over here. If we get into this, so here we could see the custom button that is generate bit.ly URL is available over here, and on click on this, it should give us a shortened URL, right? So once I click on proceed, here you could see that we have received the shortened URL as the execution result. So the extension is working properly. Also, if we get into the particular invoice record and click on edit, here we could see that the bit.ly URL that the extension has just generated is also listed in the custom field that we have created using our extension. So with this, we can confirm that our extension is working properly as expected.